Earth is not a friendly place and never has been. In fact, if our planet had a resume, it would include 5 mass extinctions, supervolcanoes that cook entire continents, a literal apocalypse-level asteroid impact, ice ages that froze entire oceans solid, and let's not forget the oxygen crisis that nearly wiped out all life before it even got started. Despite all that, life found a way. Well, some of it did. Here's the thing, 9.9% of all species that have ever existed are extinct, gone, fossilized, poof. You wouldn't bet on anything lasting long in these conditions. Some disappeared in a matter of centuries, others slowly declined over thousands of years, and some didn't even make it past the prototype phase. But every once in a while, a creature comes along that just won't die, something that shrugs off extinction after extinction like it's dodging bad Yelp reviews. Something refused to go quietly into that fossilized night. It survived planetary scale disasters, outlasted the dinosaurs, witnessed the rise of mammals in the Ice Age, and still decided to keep vibing in the deep sea. It's a creature so ancient that when dinosaurs first showed up, it was already considered old school. Something so ridiculously stubborn that scientists actually declared it extinct for 66 million years only to be completely wrong. Yeah, it turns out evolution gave up on upgrading this thing hundreds of millions of years ago, and somehow it's still here. Meet the Coelacanth, the most unkillable prehistoric creature that refused to go extinct. But here's the thing, this fish is a living fossil, a creature so ancient that it was already old news when dinosaurs first showed up. The fossil evidence tells us that coelacanths have been around for at least 400 million years, which means they were swimming in prehistoric oceans before trees even existed. Yep, this fish is older than the concept of forests. When the coelacanth first appeared, Earth was an alien world compared to what we see today. This was the Devonian period, often called the Age of Fishes, and the planet was dominated by vast, shallow supercontinent, spanning seas teeming with marine life. There were no flowering plants, no birds, no dinosaurs, just an oceanic wilderness filled with bizarre and terrifying fish. Among them was, for example, Dunkleosteus, a monstrous 30-foot-long armored predator with a bite force rivaling that of a T-Rex. Instead of teeth, it had razor, sharp bony plates that could shear through anything unlucky enough to swim near it, including other Dunkleosteus. Then there was Cladocelich, a small but spiky shark-like fish covered in defensive spines that made it look more like a medieval weapon than a living creature. Meanwhile, Xenacanthus, an eel-like shark with a bizarre spike growing out of its head, lurked in freshwater swamps, using its needle-like teeth to snap up anything that moved. And let's not forget Titanichthes, a heavily armored, torpedo-shaped oddball that had no jaws, but could still zoom through the Devonian waters like a prehistoric missile. The land was only just beginning to be colonized by primitive plants, fungi, and the first brave arthropods crawling onto muddy shorelines. The continents themselves looked unrecognizable. Most of the land was clustered into the supercontinent Gondwana, while other land masses were drifting toward what would eventually form Europe and North America. The air was thick with carbon dioxide, the climate was warm and humid, and oxygen levels were rising, setting the stage for the first forests of towering fern-like plants. But while some creatures were making their first steps onto land, the coelacanth took a different path. It stayed in the water, unchanged for millions of years, lurking in the depths, while the rest of life on Earth evolved around it. While most species spent the last few 100 million years evolving, adapting, and upgrading, the coelacanth basically said, "Nah, I'm good." It looks almost identical to its fossilized ancestors. Why? Because it didn't need to change. It's like that one person who's had the same haircut since the 80s. If it works, it works. So, what's the secret to this deep-sea weirdo's survival? A few things, actually. It possesses lobe, pectoral, and pelvic fins with bones inside, kind of like the precursor to legs. Scientists believe its ancient relatives were among the first fish to start waddling onto land. But this guy just opted out of that whole evolution thing and stayed in the ocean. Most fish just open and close their mouths, but the coelacanth has a second joint in its skull that lets its head split open like a terrifying Pez dispenser. This lets it gulp down prey whole with extra force, which is honestly kind of terrifying. Deep in the ocean, light doesn't reach, but the coelacanth doesn't need eyes to hunt. It has a special electrosensory organ in its snout that lets it detect the electric fields of other animals, basically making a prehistoric submarine with built-in sonar. Coelacanths also have a metabolism slower than your worst Monday morning. They are extremely slow, moving with a low metabolism that barely burns energy. Some scientists think this helped them survive extinction events when food ran out, as they could just chill. A coelacanth can go months without eating and still be fine. How the hell did it survive when 99% of species didn't? The coelacanth has outlived sharks, reptiles, and even most other fish species by sticking to one simple survival rule: stay where nobody else wants to go. While its ancient cousins moved into shallow waters and evolved into land creatures, the coelacanth dipped into the deep sea twilight zone, a dark, high-pressure region 200 to 500 meters or 656 to 160 feet below the surface where few predators could reach it. And it worked. This deep-sea hideout shielded it from major extinction events like the asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. When the world above was burning, the coelacanth was just vibing in the abyss, completely unaware of the apocalypse happening overhead. The coelacanth has somehow outlived 5 mass extinctions, each of which wiped out massive portions of life on Earth. From asteroid impacts to runaway climate shifts, these extinction events reshaped ecosystems, yet the coelacanth persisted in the deep sea, seemingly untouched. How? Let's break it down extinction by extinction. First, the late Devonian extinction occurred around 375 million years ago, marking the slow death of the shallow seas. The Devonian, the golden age of fishes, ended in a drawn-out catastrophe lasting several million years. Up to 75% of marine species died, particularly shallow water organisms. The likely culprits were massive volcanic eruptions leading to climate shifts, plummeting oxygen levels in the oceans, causing hypoxia that suffocated marine life, global cooling leading to glaciations affecting warm water species, and the appearance of the first forests causing soil erosion, and nutrient runoff triggering deadly algal blooms. Unlike many of its fish relatives which lived in coastal waters or reefs, the coelacanth had already retreated to deep sea environments 200 to 500 meters deep, places with stable temperatures, fewer competitors, and low oxygen demand. It avoided the deadly shallow water oxygen crashes. The deep sea acts as a buffer, absorbing climate changes much more slowly than surface waters. While reefs collapsed and species vanished, the deep sea coelacanth kept doing its thing, floating around, barely moving and waiting it out. Next was the Permian-Triassic extinction around 252 million years ago, known as the Great Dying. This was the worst extinction in Earth's history, where 96% of marine species and 70% of land vertebrates died. The oceans turned into lifeless, acidic, oxygen-deprived soup due to gigantic Siberian traps, volcanic eruptions spewing CO2 and methane. This led to runaway global warming as ocean temperatures skyrocketed by 10 degrees Celsius or 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean acidification dissolved shells and corroded marine life, literally like breathing mustard gas. Massive anoxia, meaning no oxygen in the water, suffocated deep sea ecosystems. This was the closest call, but the Coelacanth had some lucky advantages. It lived deep, very deep, below the worst of the surface, driven extinction chaos. Unlike shelled creatures, the coelacanth didn't rely on calcium carbonate, so acidification didn't dissolve its body. Being a slow-moving, low-metabolism predator, it needed very little food, a key advantage when ecosystems were collapsing. Deep sea currents provided isolated pockets of oxygen, allowing it to avoid the worst oxygen crashes. While nearly everything else died off, the coelacanth held on in deep sea ridges where conditions were slightly more stable. Then came the Triassic-Jurassic extinction around 2.1 million years ago, another period of volcanic chaos. Massive volcanic eruptions in the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province triggered rapid CO2 spikes, leading to global warming and ocean acidification again. Widespread marine extinctions occurred, especially in coastal ecosystems, with around 80% of species disappearing, paving the way for the dinosaurs to dominate. Deep sea isolation once again provided a refuge from surface-level devastation. The coelacanth wasn't a reef-dependent species, so the collapse of reef ecosystems didn't impact it directly. By keeping its low-energy lifestyle, it didn't need much food, meaning it could survive food shortages better than more active fish. While many marine species were wiped out, the deep sea acted as a natural survival bunker, shielding the coelacanth from extreme changes. The Cretaceous-Paleogene, or KG, extinction happened, selected words, around 66 million years ago, famously known as the dinosaur killer. This one is the most famous, probably because it's really the only one that came from outer space. For once, nothing was going wrong on Earth at the time, at least until a giant rock came crashing down onto Mexico. The 6-mile-wide asteroid smashed into Earth, causing firestorms, shock waves, and global tsunamis that devastated life instantly. Dust and debris blocked sunlight for years, causing a global winter, and up to 75% of species went extinct, including all non-avian dinosaurs. Deep sea life was mostly unaffected. The coelacanth lived far below the immediate destruction. Unlike large marine reptiles that needed regular surface air, the coelacanth never needed to surface, avoiding tsunami-related die-offs. It was used to low, light environments, so the post-impact nuclear winter didn't affect its lifestyle. Its slow metabolism meant low food needs, allowing it to survive temporary collapses in the food chain. This extinction wiped out major marine predators like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, leaving the coelacanth with even fewer threats. Finally, we face the current extinction, the Anthropocene. Now, overfishing and deep sea trawling are catching coelacanths by accident. Ocean acidification and warming are increasing due to climate change. Pollution and habitat destruction threaten deep sea ecosystems. Coelacanths reproduce extremely slowly with a 5-year pregnancy, meaning they can't repopulate quickly if numbers decline. Will it survive one more extinction? The coelacanth has defied the odds for 400 million years. It has outlived the dinosaurs, the rise and fall of empires, and multiple planetary catastrophes. But now, for the first time, it's facing an extinction threat it can't just swim away from. Luckily, conservation efforts have begun to protect this prehistoric survivor. In 1998, the coelacanth was officially declared a protected species, making it illegal to fish for them. But with habitat destruction, ocean pollution, and climate change accelerating, protection laws might not be enough. So, after outlasting the dinosaurs, volcanoes, and ice ages, will we be the ones to finally take it out? Or will the coelacanth pull off yet another survival miracle and end up outliving us as well? And so the coelacanth swims on, untouched by time, indifferent to disaster, a relic of an ancient world that still refuses to die. But will it survive the modern age? Or is this finally the end of the line for evolution's most stubborn fish? If you enjoyed this deep dive into prehistoric survivors, don't forget to subscribe to Echoes of Extinction for more explorations of nature's toughest creatures and extinct ones. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden stories of evolution's greatest underdogs, click on the video on your screen right now. It's another fascinating look at survival against the odds.